Welcome to the Brain Over Binge podcast, where you learn a simple, brain-based approach to ending binge eating. I'm so happy you're here today. I'm Kathryn Hansen, and Coach Julie is also here for this episode. We want to help you stop binge eating so that you can move on with your life. And we're both living proof that it's absolutely possible to put this harmful habit behind you and develop a normal relationship with food. To help you stay motivated as you stop binging, you can get my free 31-day inspiration booklet that contains daily messages to keep you focused on recovery, to remind you of brain over binge concepts, and to provide encouragement when you need it. You can download this free booklet by going to the show description or finding it on the homepage of brainoverbinge.com. Today, Coach Julie and I will talk about a phrase that Julie has used here on the podcast and that she also uses as a framework in coaching as she helps people learn to eat adequately. The phrase is, eat foods that you love you back. Now, if you're anything like me, and Julie and I will address this in our conversation, your first impression of this phrase might be that it seems like a very challenging goal, or even unrealistic at times, especially with a busy and demanding life, and especially with the cost of food these days. But there's so much more to it and so many ways you can look at this phrase, and we're going to help you see how you can use this as a powerful framework in your own life. Hi, Julie. So glad you're back.
Hi, Kathryn. I'm so glad to be here.
We're going to be talking about an aspect of adequate eating, which we talk about a lot here on the podcast. It is so fundamental that you eat enough food to nourish yourself in order to stop binging. And Julie, a phrase that you often use to help people with adequate eating is to learn how to eat foods that love you back. There's many aspects to this phrase. It's very nuanced. It's something that I think can be a really helpful tool for people. So we're going to dive into this concept and teach you how to make it work for you.
Yeah.
So maybe you could go into where this phrase came from and how it's worked in your life and kind of how you use it to help others.
Yeah, I think in Brain Over Binge, we talk a lot about like the importance of adequate eating. I always say adequate eating is top of the pile because without adequate eating, it's impossible to manage urges. They're inextricably linked, but the truth is that if you're restricting, urges become unmanageable. The amount of time that takes for that to happen varies from person to person, but that's the case. So I often talk about this tool that I use, namely choosing foods you love you back in amounts that leave you sated or full. And, we've talked on podcasts about reclaiming fullness and also like redefining restriction and also not unwittingly restricting. So with foods you love you back, the key thing that I always talk about there is that the word love, it's not about health. It's not about macronutrient components. It's not about the balance on your plate. Love means that you love it when you're thinking about it. So before you eat it, you're like, oh, that's going to be so good. And then when you're eating it, you're like, this is delicious. I love this food, right? You're really enjoying it. And then also when you finished eating it, you're really glad that you did. You're energized. You can get on with your day.
Yeah. And it's really helpful to think about all three aspects like you talked about. You love it before you eat it, you love it when you're eating it, and you love it when you're done. And I love how you point out that the word love doesn't mean like nutritionally perfect for your body. Because when I first heard this phrase, and we talked about this before, is that I was like, I don't know if I do that because some foods I put into my body, yes, they're delicious. Yes, they work for me in my life, but does every cell in my body love them? Maybe not, because as we look at foods, yeah, it's not helpful to label them as bad or as unhealthy because it's so subjective. But, there is science out there that certain foods aren't necessarily the best for our body. And I eat some of those foods. So I was like, okay, but is there a more expansive way to look at this? And there certainly is. And I love that you teach people this more expansive way because you can love a food or a food can love you back, not necessarily because it gives you the perfect nutrients or it's the healthiest food you could possibly put in your body, but because you just need the calories at the time. You just need the energy to fuel your life. You have other priorities you want to focus on, goals you want to accomplish, and you kind of just need food to be convenient. And there's, many different ways we can look at this. But when I started looking at it with that more expansive view, I was like, oh, wow, this is so helpful to teach people this concept of learning to love foods and learning to see which ones love you back for many different reasons, not just that nutritional component.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm also so glad that you're mentioning that because, as part of the teaching around this, I tell people to drop all food report cards And, for people in other countries that don't know what I'm talking about, in school in the United States, we give report cards and I'm a teacher and, we have to give students grades. And in the world of dieting and food and eating disorders, everything that we put into our mouth can become a trauma. What's the macronutrient breakdown? Did I get enough protein? Is there enough fat? Is there too many calories? Da, 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 da. We make ourselves crazy. And the truth is that what is healthy for me could be extremely unhealthy for another person and vice versa. It is so subjective. I always talk about the fact that we have to find our own unique formulas. I cannot tell you, Kathryn, what's going to work for you, and you certainly cannot tell me what's going to work for me. And what worked for me when I was 20, and then when I was 30, and then when I was 40, and then even when I was in my early 50s, doesn't work for me now as I approach 55, right? Like it ebbs and it flows. It changes with stages of our lives. It changes for so many reasons, right? And we're all managing different health conditions, different stressors, different allergies, different whatever. So love does not mean eating, wheat when you have celiac. Because again, it doesn't fit I love it when I think about it, I love it when I taste it, and I love it when I'm done, right? But I don't want a person with celiac saying, like, that's not healthy, right? Because again, it's so subjective. It's just more like, I don't eat that because I have a medical condition that I'm managing. And so it's like taking away all the labels and instead really getting in tune with, does it meet my needs? And so that could be a donut, right? Like a delicious donut, but probably not 30 at one time.
Yeah, because as you talk about, it involves the amount too. Like the idea of a food loving you
Yes.
back, it could love you back in certain amounts, like one donut, but once you get over, let's say, three or four, you feel really bad afterwards. So that amount doesn't love you back. It's not necessarily the food itself, it could be the amount. Another thing that could affect it could be the context. Like something could be fine for you in the evening, but let's say when you eat it in the morning, it makes you really sluggish. In the evening, you're fine being a little sluggish because you're going to bed anyway. Like certain things like that, the time of day, the context that you're
Yes.
in, your stress level at the time. Like if you're super stressed, you may not digest the food very well, but if you're calm and relaxed, you can eat that food. So I think, don't be too quick to slash a food out of your life and say, oh, that doesn't love me back, because there could be a lot of things going on and we don't
Yes.
want you to become overly restrictive. I always say eat in the least restrictive way that's possible for you. And if you take
Yes.
this idea of, okay, I need to only eat foods that love me back, and you start kind of slashing foods without really thinking of all the other factors like your context, the stress level, your digestion, like even if you think a food doesn't love you back, well, maybe instead of slashing the food, you could think about your digestion. How could I help my digestion? Like being calm, maybe digestive
Mhm.
enzymes, things like that could help
Yep.
you digest it. So
Yep.
yeah, just don't use this concept to quickly slash foods out of your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, getting back to please take away all food report cards. And also, some things that you just mentioned, I want to talk about. So, like, there are three quote unquote vitamins that I think everyone should be taking with each meal. So, vitamin one is vitamin P for pleasure. It's really important that you experience pleasure when you're eating your food. So, eat with full permission and full pleasure. The second vitamin is O for oxygen. So making sure you take slow, deep breaths before, during, and after your meals, because when you slow your nervous system down, you're putting yourself into rest and digest mode, which means that not only are you going to enjoy your food more, your body's going to be able to process it, and also you're aiding your digestive system, right? So, like all of that. And then vitamin C for curiosity, right? Like I want people to be wearing a researcher's hat when they're eating so that instead of having fear around food, we did that podcast on curiosity and how it's such an expansive emotion. And gratitude is also another expansive emotion, right? So we could add vitamin G, gratitude for the meal. But the idea is like when you sit down to eat a meal, notice, when I eat this food calmly and with pleasure and with breathing, how does it feel? Do I enjoy it more? Do I need less of it? Do I have a different experience when I eat it with company? Is it different than when I eat it alone? When I eat this amount, does it leave me sated for long enough? When I eat this amount, does it getting really curious, becoming your own best expert, putting on your researcher hat, so important. And again, like noticing when I was 20, I really loved this food, but now not so much. I mean, I remember you talking about that with your famous cereals, how like yeah, that stuck with me, how like, you really loved it. And then you went back to it later on in life and you were like, I don't know, that doesn't have as much of a draw. Like it's not out of your life, but it's not like you're like, oh, I can't wait to have cereal.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I love that you bring up that this all changes throughout life because, yeah, early on in my recovery, it was very much like it was so helpful to get rid of restriction and allow myself to have all foods. And I still allow myself to have all foods, but as I'm older, I'm 43 now and like sugar and things that are super like all that stuff I used to binge on, yes, they work in normal amounts, but like the amounts that work are less than they used to be. The actual physical effect I feel is like, ugh, this doesn't feel good. So that's just like a small example of my own life. Do I still eat them? Yes, because they still work for me in certain amounts, certain times, certain contexts, totally fine. There are only a couple things that like literally do not work for my body and maybe not even qualify as food, and that's coffee and alcohol. Like every single time I have coffee or alcohol, I feel absolutely awful. So those are two things that I've kind of had to cut out of my life at this age. Like I've tried coffee over and over and over to really make sure because I don't
Me
want to give
too.
it up, but something that clearly shows you over and over and over that it's not working for you is something that is not loving you back.
Right, exactly, exactly. And again, it's not about healthy or unhealthy because, like, let's take the coffee and even a wine example. You can find a million people on the internet arguing for all the benefits of,
Yeah.
the magical coffee and or the resveratrol in wine versus the people who say there's no amount of alcohol that's ever necessary and or that, coffee is poison. And at the end of the day, does it work for you? And is it working because maybe like one hit of espresso in the morning is fine, but 12 cups throughout the day isn't for some person.
Yeah.
And or half a glass of red wine on a Friday with your husband or your partner works really well, but having, half a bottle every single day doesn't, right? Like it's just so individual. And what I'm aiming for with my coaching, and I know you are too, is to bring back peace around food. It doesn't need to be that fraught. You throw some food on a plate, you get really curious, you get calm, you breathe, you enjoy it, and you notice. And if that meal is not a win, okay, so next time you tweak and adapt. But it
Yeah.
doesn't need to be, oh my God, what did I do? Right? It can just be very calm. Like,
Yeah.
oh, when I eat this food in this amount, I get a tummy ache. When I eat a little less, I don't get a tummy ache. Good information for next time.
Yeah, I like your idea of just throw some food on a plate, be curious, get feedback from your body because we don't want this to be something that you say, I have to eat foods that I love, that love me back every single time. Because when you have that mindset of like, I have to, and you put all this pressure on yourself, then I feel like no food is going to love you back with that mindset.
Right. And also, I always say this like everything that I offer to people, it's a tool, not a rule,
Mhm.
right? Like at the end of the day, the only rules eat adequately, dismiss urges, eat adequately, expect and allow urges, like the ends and celebrate. I mean, I kind of think celebrate should be a rule only because it's reinforcing what you want for yourself. And I'm cheesy like that. But beyond that, like these are tools. You don't like that language? Don't use that language, whatever. But the point is that I can't tell you what to eat. Only you can figure that out for yourself. And you can stay wedded to like, oh, but I need to know exact amounts and exact breakdowns and I have to figure this out and it's an exact science. And it's like it's really not, except in the fact that like yes, it's your own unique exact science, right? Like that's where it comes from. And this notion of like reclaiming love, I like saying foods you love that love you back and amounts that love you back because I want us to go back to loving food. The way
Yeah.
that my daughter, when she sits down to eat, like she really loves her food and then she just gets on with her day. She couldn't care less about it after she finishes. And I think it's that way with your kids too, but she really loves it. And it's a pleasure to see because it shouldn't be fraught. Food is delicious. It should be pleasurable. And then you should get on with your day.
Yeah, I love that idea of just reclaiming love for your food because if we get so caught up in like what exactly you should be eating, you're not going to love it. And so if you have this simple framework of find foods that I love, choose foods that I love that love me back, it makes it more of an art. It makes it more just self-compassionate for your body, you really get to start asking yourself these questions. What food do I like in this situation? What amounts do I like in this situation? What might I want to add to this meal that I love? And then also, how do I feel after? Did that food give me energy? Instead of like trying
Yeah.
to always follow someone else's meal plan or someone else's rules that they're given to you, you get to be your own researcher, like you said, and discover
Yeah.
what works for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, and in the group, which is a great place to get support around this, I've designed lessons around it, finding the answers within and becoming your own best expert and finding your formula, right? These are really important skills to develop because when you develop those skills, first of all, like you reclaim your power, you see like I always have choice. I am always at choice, right? And so when you start developing that sense of empowerment and choice around food, and you see that you're more powerful than any urge, and food is inert. Food doesn't jump into your mouth. You take it and you eat it, right? And so reclaiming that power, there's something about that where you develop this infallible trust with yourself where I have my own back. And the worst that can happen is I eat a meal that doesn't agree with me. And then I tweak and adapt. It's just like, it's not that big of a deal. And then from there, the other beautiful thing, and we've talked about this before, is that becomes a transferable skill, right? Because then it's like, oh, I am my own best expert about what I eat. I'm also my own best expert about how I move my body, moving in ways I love that love me back, right? And you and I, former exercise bulimics, right? We certainly were not moving in ways that loved us back. And so, but now we do. You couldn't get me to go running if you paid me because I know that doesn't love me back. It hurts,
Yeah.
I get injured and it doesn't bring me any joy. Right. And I learned that about myself and socializing in ways I love that love me back, saying no to social engagements where I know I'm not gonna be cool there. It's not gonna work for me. Right. Like that ownership, that comfort with yourself, dressing in ways you love that love you back, decorating in ways you love. I mean, it's transferable in so many ways. So yeah, that's something else to consider.
Yeah, I really love that. You can take it in so many different directions that relate to recovery and also that just relate to life in general. I do want to say too that it's something that can evolve over time as you recover, that can look different in the beginning of recovery and then sort of when you get more advanced and more in touch with your appetite and your what you like. And I want to sort of explain that because early on in recovery, your appetite can be really off. I talk to people in coaching, like, I don't feel like I know my hunger. I don't feel like I know my fullness. I don't really know what I like. So
Right.
the foods that you love that love you back could just be, like you said, putting some food on a plate, just calories, just energy, like maybe
Yes.
trying to get your macronutrients, like not your macronutrients, like counting macronutrients, but make sure you get
Yes.
fat in your day, make sure you get carbs in
Yes.
your day, make sure you get protein.
Yes.
That could be what you love that loves you back just because it's all you can do. And like it makes it so simple. And then as you go, you start to get more feedback from your body. You start to own that sense of choice, like you keep talking about. Your appetite regulates more. So you start to feel more in touch with hunger. You start to feel more in touch with fullness. And also, like your digestion improves. When you're binging and restricting, your digestion is off. So it may not feel like many foods love you too much because it's just hard to digest things and obviously get any sort of help you need as far as medically in that area. But
Yep.
as your digestion improves with recovery, the foods will start to love you back. Like you
Yep.
might feel sluggish if you're so used to restricting and you eat adequate meals, you might feel like, oh gosh, it's hard to digest. I feel kind of sluggish. But over time, your body starts to really appreciate that energy. So just know it's going to feel different at different stages of recovery.
Absolutely. I think that's brilliant. Such an important point to bring up about not only the way that like developing this relationship is part like an ongoing process. It's a skill that you're developing. It's also an adaptation process in the body, but also I want to add like take a leap of faith. Like if you're listening to us and you're thinking, yeah, it's fine for them, but that's not going to work for me. I need somebody to tell me what to do. They figured it out. I can't. I need more help than that. It's hopeless for me. It's like take a leap of faith and trust that our bodies all have wisdom. All of our bodies have wisdom. And yes, as Kathryn said, like our hunger and fullness signals can be off. Our digestive processes can be thrown off. I mean, Lord, as a former laxative bulimic, my digestion, you can imagine, like that was problematic for a long time. And I just kept having to say, one of my mantras was, I trust the wisdom of my body. And I would just say that over and over and over again. And I would put on loose, flowy clothing and I would allow for the bloat and I would allow for whatever was going on. And I just trusted that if I threw some food on a plate and got curious and ate in a calm way and expected and allowed urges, that over time, gradually, slowly, my body would start responding. And it took time. It was not days. It wasn't even weeks. It was months. It was very slow, almost imperceptible. But I held out faith because I knew that what I was doing before absolutely wasn't working and it was killing me. So I had nothing to lose.
Yeah, I really love that. It helps to hear your personal story around that because people think, oh, I should just be able to eat and feel great after every meal. Well, that it may not feel that way in the early on in recovery when you're so dysregulated. So yeah, trusting the process, trusting that your body can heal, get any help and support you need along the way, whether that's medical help, nutritional help. Obviously, we have the group, we have the course, we have all these resources you can use to help yourself get through that initial difficult period.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we're close to wrapping up here, but I do want to say one more thing in that I'm always talking about the lower brain and the urges to binge, and that is the direct cause of binging. And sometimes the lower brain can use things like this or different tools to try to encourage you to binge. So something I've heard is like, oh, I ate a food that doesn't love me back, so I failed and I might as well binge.
Right,
Like,
right.
I ate this food, I don't love this food. Why did I eat this food? I went down the wrong path. Now a binge is inevitable. And we don't want you to use that at all. So
Ever.
that's something to totally be aware of. Like, can you choose to eat a food that doesn't love you back? Yeah, absolutely. We're not saying that is a failure. We're not saying that is going to cause binging. Obviously, if there's food allergies and things like that, yeah, you want to definitely try to avoid those foods that are truly harming you. But if you can't afford anything else, if you don't have anything else available, you just need some energy, you're not failing if you eat something that maybe isn't ideal as far as this
Right.
framework of loving foods that love you back.
Exactly, exactly. And that gets back to that whole curiosity thing, right? If you come at this with curiosity every single time, vitamin P, vitamin O, vitamin C, vitamin G, right? Like you're breathing, you're enjoying it with full permission, you get really curious, you have gratitude, and you just say, oh, that didn't love me back. Oh, well, next time I'll either modify the amount or I won't choose that food at all. No
Yeah.
big deal. I always say you're either winning or learning. And when you learn, you win more later. And maybe in the moment, it's not so fun to have it, the learning moment, but that's where the gold is. And that's how you refine things. And so it's so very important to notice and note, that didn't work for me. Good information, not a problem, not a reason to binge, not a reason to beat myself up ever, just curiosity and love.
Yeah. Because that energy of, oh, that didn't work for me. Let me, see how I could maybe choose differently next time is so much better and different than, oh, I've failed, I've blown it, I might as well binge. And that's the path we don't
Exactly.
want you to go down. So just be aware, very aware of those lower brain thoughts as you use this tool.
Exactly. Love it.
Well, thank you so much, Julie, for talking about this. It's a great concept. And I hope that everyone listening can sort of interpret how this is going to apply in your own life and really what it means to you.
So great, Kathryn. And again, come join the group if you need help with it.
Yes, absolutely. And the link for the group will be in the show description. And Julie, I really appreciate you being here today.
My pleasure, Kathryn. See you soon.
I hope that you found this conversation useful and that it inspires you to start enjoying, appreciating, and even loving food for many different reasons. As you learn to eat foods that are maybe more challenging for you and tend to give rise to urges to binge, you could love those foods simply because they give you the opportunity to practice dismissing urges. And you can love the way you feel when you capture that sense of choice around those more stimulating foods. One final note as I wrap up this episode is that your lower brain might sometimes tell you that you love binging, but you would not be listening to this podcast if that was the case. Binging always ends in pain. It's always harmful. It's never a form of true enjoyment or true pleasure when it comes to food. Now, some of the foods you binge on, you could absolutely learn to love in normal amounts, but that excessive, out of control eating is never a form of loving food, and a binge never loves you back. If you want more help and support, check out the information about the Brain Over Binge group in the show description, and there you'll also find links to learn about one-on-one coaching with me or Coach Julie, as well as links to my books, the self-paced online course, which is less than $20 per month, and that free inspiration booklet that I mentioned early in this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I hope you'll join us again next time. And as always, I want to encourage you and remind you that you have the power to change your brain and live a binge-free life. The Brain Over Binge podcast is produced and recorded by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC. All work is copyrighted by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC, and all rights are reserved. As a disclaimer, the hosts of the Brain Over Binge podcast are not professional counselors or licensed healthcare providers, and this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice or any form of professional therapy. Eating disorders can have serious health consequences, and you are strongly advised to seek medical attention for matters relating to your health. Please get help when you need it, and good luck on your journey.